afternoon, everyone. We are here with yet another session of Expert Talk. And today we have Joby George with us. So I would request, first of all, Dr. Pooja Sharma, the CEO of Our Health, to give a brief introduction of Joby George.
Thank you so much, Umaira ma'am. Thank you so much, Joby, for joining us today. It's my honor to welcome you to this group. So, dear friends, Joby is a senior clinical researcher at Medanta Medicity. He's a clinical research nurse. He's also the faculty lead, regional faculty lead for India for the Global Health Nurses Network and from the University of Oxford, London. He's the most inspiring thing about him, and we've been working together for almost 10 years, is that he has resilience and a consistency, empathy, which I think only nurses can really have. So I really wanted him to share his journey with you and how nurses in today's world can actually play a very important part in clinical research. So we've all, read about how research can help you in your academics, how it can add value to your career. But what today we want to learn from Jyoti is how to make clinical research nursing as a career in clinical research. So over to Joby. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Pooja, for this valuable words. It is indeed my honor to associate with one of the innovative group of researchers headed by you. Thank you, Humaira, for the organizing this webinar. A very warm good evening to you, all of you. It is indeed my pleasure in just sharing my experiences in exploring the careers in clinical research. So I know that it is a little to the evening. You will feel a little post stress out after a long day of work, but I'll try to make it as interesting and interactive as it is so that you will not sleep on this 5 p.m. webinar. So research is nothing but, as I listed in my first slide, research has some traits. A researcher should be responsible. A researcher should be ethical. He should be sound, empowered, attentive, resourceful, creative, and honest. I think all these traits will make you a complete researcher. And as nurses, I'm sure that you possess all these traits for becoming a researcher. I know that you are a nurse, but at the same time, you can become a researcher by possessing all these traits within you. So all these traits are already there. It is all about the matter of inculcating that researcher in you so that the best evidences can be put into practice, which I think the nurses can only do that. Next slide. I'll just try to just put down some of the I'll just try to put down some of the basics of what research is all about.
The non-speakers to mute the mic. All the students are requested to mute the mics. Yes, Joby.
I just thought to put some slides with the basics of a research all about. So I'll start with Florence Nightingale. I hope that all of you know who she is. She's a pioneer of modern nursing, Florence Nightingale. When you Google her, the Florence Nightingale, you will first see that she was a statistician. She was a statistician, turned herself into exploring the nursing to the next level. She told that to understand God's thought, we must study statistics, for these are the measures of his purpose. So Florence Nightingale, you should get inspired by the rich work of Florence Nightingale. When you Google it out, her works, she was a perfect statistician who has turned herself to be a statistician turned nurse. I can say that. Next slide. I think the slide is not there, or it is. Yeah. Thank you. The word researcher is derived from the French word chercher, that means signifies the replication of search, implying that the person has to find out or take another more careful look. So anything which we want to have a more intense look or research is all about the word research itself has everything in it, that to research what you want to intend to search. Let's say that you look after the patient care, you want to do something different, or you want to research about that, why this is happening or in what aspect this is happening. So all those things which you are doing in your daily practice, it is all about research. And so a researcher has, a nurse has all the traits of a researcher, because he or she has been practicing all those evidences that can be turned into policies and that can be turned into actions of future health policies. So next slide, please. So clinical research involves the study of human health with the systematic investigation of new drugs, new treatments, devices, or therapies. Anything that involves systematic investigation is termed as clinical research. It plays a very crucial role in advancing medical knowledge, improving patient care, and developing innovative healthcare solutions. An example of innovative healthcare solution is that you all have smart watches. So you should be aware of that. All these smartwatches has also been researched by the researchers. So after researching, only this kind of wearable devices has come into the market. So anything that improves the patient care, anything that develop innovative health technologies, anything that advance the medical knowledge can be termed as clinical research. Next slide. Some of the key components of clinical research is that there are some fundamental elements that has been already there and which can be turned as into a landscape of clinical research. Clinical research involves clinical trials with its different phases and purpose. You all might be know that there are 4 phases of clinical trials, and that each phase has its own purpose, its own aims, its own objectives, its own outcome. And there are regulatory or compliance, ethical and legal consideration involved in clinical trials. Clinical trials is involved with data collection, analysis, with rigorous standards and methodologies are involved in the field of clinical research. Next slide. Now, why you have chosen clinical research? You might have chosen clinical research because, next slide. You might have chosen the clinical research because there is some professional advantages that you might have thought that, yes, this field will give me some professional advancement. Yes, you're correct. This field will definitely give you a professional advancement. This because of the content, because of the scientific content in nature, you will be interested to learn into research, the impact of healthcare, because you are contributing to some of the scientific advancement, vaccines, or our COVID vaccine. You might be interested to know that we have done interventional studies at the time of COVID, because that itself, that we are turning ourselves into for the future of the healthcare, we are saving the lives of the healthcare. So it gives a contentment, it gives a satisfaction, yes, that I am involved into one of the best aspect of healthcare. So with the diverse opportunities, the diverse opportunities that is involved here is that from a clinical research nurse, if you start your career, I think that you can become a vice president of a clinical research organization, because that itself, that career path is defined in this industry, because you are involved into one of the innovative specialty. You will be involved with a global collaboration. You will be involved with a multi-center study. You can have a one-to-one word with the scientists, with the researchers all across the globe. Well, these are some of the things that I thought to put into my slides, because these are some of the points that dive you into the field of clinical research. Next slide. As I told you that you can improve, the path of within this clinical research industry is worthy. You can start from a clinical research coordinator to, as I written that, you can turn into a clinical research associate, to a data manager, to regulatory affairs specialist, clinical project manager, biostatistician, a director, and finally the vice president of a company. So it all depends upon how you take your career to the next level. It is nowhere written that a nurse cannot become a clinical researcher. It's nowhere written that a nurse cannot become a vice president of a company. It totally depends upon your interest in doing something different from all other nurses. And what are the education requirement? Next slide. What are the education requirement? There is some of the specific requirements, and is that you should have a degree in medicine, nursing, pharmacy, or life sciences. But in terms of nursing, if I tell you, it is not written anywhere that you should be a bachelor's degree. You can be a diploma holder in nursing also if you want to aspire clinical research as a career. You can do some of the certification like good clinical practice. Good clinical practice certification has been available online. It can be done free of cost, and there are value-added courses as APAR has been for professional diploma in clinical research. So all these will build the foundation for all this will found you. All this will.
Please mute the mic. Somebody has not muted the mic. The audience, please mute the mics.
For becoming a clinical researcher. Next slide. Some of the basic skill sets that is being required for becoming a clinical researcher is that there are some of the essential competencies. Essential competencies, as I told in my first slide, that you should be responsible, you should be ethical, you should be resourceful, you should be competitive, you should be honest. So these are some of the essential competencies that for you to possess as a clinical researcher. Beyond academic qualification, you should be attention in detail. You should possess strong analytical skills with problem-solving abilities, and obviously a good communication will enable you to become a good researcher of growing tomorrow. Next slide. Well, there are some challenges which you might have to face for becoming a researcher. At the same time, these challenges is also having a balance of some of the great rewards. The great rewards is that if you become a clinical researcher, is that you possess an intellectual scientific stimulation. It means that you require some of the critical thinking abilities like problem solving, the work-life balance. You will get a work-life balance throughout your career. It does not mean that you don't have to work, but yes, you have to work in such a way that your work-life balance remains stagnant, and you will be interested, you will be confident enough in handling a teamwork. You will be able to collaborate it with international and national sponsors, and obviously it will develop your career to the next level. And all the above, which I feel the most, is that you're contributing to the science, you're contributing to the development of something new. How happy it would be a person, let's say that a person for a disease, if there is no treatment, and if a clinical research has come up with an innovative treatment for that particular disease, how happy it would be that particular patient, how happy it would be that particular family. The contentment is what I felt is cannot be expressed in words. So obviously you are contributing to the advancement of science, advancement of medical healthcare. Next slide. Well, there are some challenges, as I told you. Because of some challenges, people might feel a little reluctant to join this clinical research industry, but that does not mean that challenges cannot be resolved. Some of the inadequate number of research-oriented environment. I have heard many nurses telling that we don't have a research environment. The research environment should be created. It should not be that like that someone will come you and teach you, because this is itself is there in your work environment. So inadequate number of research oriented environment, you will feel that I don't have enough resources to do the research. And one fact is that most nurses do not possess a reading culture. They possess seeing culture, but they do not possess reading culture. I'm sorry to offend someone, but this is the fact, because they don't have a reading culture. So nurses must empower themselves to for a reading culture. Administration not allowing implementation. You can tell that I am interested to do the research, but my hospital is not allowing me to do the research. You might feel that particular thing. Most of the nurses and most of the clinical researcher, the basic clinical researcher, they don't understand statistics. So that might face a little challenge for you. Because of the steep learning curve, let's say that a coordinator who was working in oncology, he might get a study of cardiology. So he has to learn, or she has to learn, a different specialty aspect point of view. So there might be a little learning curve, in a way that because you have to learn different specialties at a single point of time, you might a little reluctant that I should learn which specialty. So, but at the same time, if you the learning is a continuous progress, learning is a continuous growth. So that is a big challenge, but that is not a problematic solution which you cannot go through. Lack of motivation. Some of the nurses tells me that I don't have enough motivation to do the research. I am telling that the motivation has to come from yourself, because until and unless you take the interest in doing something different, how can the other person knows about that you would be interested to do something different? For that, you have to be a motivator of yourself. Ethical consideration. Some of the researchers comes and tell that because it involves some of the complex process. It involves informed consent process, ethical safety, data handling. So this might face a little challenges for you to move ahead. Next slide. Next slide. Well, clinical research is moving at a rapid pace. From phase 1 to phase 4, the clinical research industry is being empowering into a new era, developing into e-clinical solutions. Dr. Pooja has done a commendable job on real-world evidence in association with Pfizer. Now, artificial intelligence in clinical trials is also an upcoming era. You would be surprised to know that now everyone is using AI, ChatGPT. Very recently, when I come across to one of my colleague asking that to write an application, so he has wonderfully written that application with using ChatGPT. So this is an era of ChatGPT. This is an era of artificial intelligence into healthcare, which you can be also proud of working together into this new era. Next slide. Some of the pictures got this one, the previous one. Previous slide, please.
I think there was this 5 myths. It's not coming up in this slide.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll just speak it up even if it is not coming.
You can start with the myths because I think then it goes to next
Yeah,
slide.
yes, I just thought to put this 5 minutes because one of my LinkedIn friend has wonderfully elaborated that even the Nobel Prize winners has also failed multiple times, and then they have become then they have won the Nobel Prize. So I thought to incorporate this 5 myths because no one will be able to produce their best without challenges. Challenges are the ways to move ahead. One of my last slide that I thought to put, I don't know that slide will come in this or not. Can you go to the last slide? The last slide. That is also not coming. Yeah, thank you. One of the last slide shows that the sharpness of the sword is not in the edge of the blade, but in the hands of the warriors. So you are the warriors to take this sword ahead. I hope that you will get to know more about clinical research aspects in the day to come. Feel free to discuss it with the team APAR or with me to involve how to get involved into research. What are the aspects of getting involved into the research? Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to interact with you all. I hope that I have done some justice to the time allotted. Over to Humaira. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joby. Thank you so much. I would request the students or audience to ask any questions, any queries anybody is having.
Hi, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is Mr. Junaid, ma'am.
Okay, can you switch on your video as well?
No, ma'am. Actually, I am outside right now, so I can't on it.
Okay, fine. So you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go
Ma'am,
ahead.
actually, I am a student of nursing.
Okay.
I am able to see most of the people are doing the research in India because all the MSc nursing students, PhD nursing students, even BSc nursing fourth year students are doing the research. But in India, the most of the research were STP and PTP are quasi-experimental, by which they are selecting a new topic and by assessing their knowledge by the help of pre-test or post-test, or by giving the intervention in the form of STP or PTP, whatever. Do you think that research is useful nowadays? Because as per my understanding, if I will taught something to any audience, whether they are from the educational background or definitely they will learn that. And after that, we are thinking that their knowledge has been increased by giving the interpretation. Do you think that a research is useful for in the field of nursing right now, or we need some qualitative research so that our society, our community, or our country will get benefited, or our patients will get benefited, or students will get benefited? Because most of the research, if you will see in India, they will just select a topic. If I can give the example of ECG, they will assess their knowledge in the form with the help of pre-test by making some questionnaire, and they will do assess that. After that, they will give the intervention in the form of STP, planet PTP, STP or planet teaching program, and they will do the post-test. And after that, they will say the knowledge has been increased from this to this. So can we focus on the same research, or we have to do some quality research in the field of nursing as a student of nursing?
Yes. Thank you, Junaid, for putting this wonderful question. So the basic thing involved in this is that you have to come out of the normal historical approach. The historical approach is that what you have told is that getting the knowledge, attitude, and practice surveys and all those questions, qualitative and quantitative. So the basic idea of getting into clinical research is to do something different. And how you should do that difference is that you should start with other experimental designs. You should start with cross-sectional surveys. You should start with the randomized controlled trials. So these are some of the experimental trials wherein you can definitely improve the patient care rather than the historical approach. See, it is not about that asking the pre and post questionnaire and after that we publish a paper. It is all about that how we change that evidence into policy and thereby into action. The nurses can only do that because they are involved with the patients round the clock. And I think that it is just a matter of getting a study approved from the respective IRB. A nurse, there is nowhere written that a nurse cannot do research, any experimental studies. A nurse can do experimental studies provided some ethical concern is to be taken care. At the same time, getting ahead with the ethical approval and doing the study to the next level. It is not about doing pre and post evaluation. It is doing something different. So the nurses must come outside of that particular circle, of that historical circle, and do this new arena. And that is where clinical research aspect come into place. You will learn many more new things. You will learn different aspects of clinical trials. You will learn different experimental designs of the study. So I think that is the importance of clinical research comes into picture. I hope that I have answered your query.
Yes, sir, that is true, sir. But as you know, even in MSc, PG, most of the students are 90% students are doing STP, PTP. Even teachers suggest them to do that only. And even I have some pharmacy students, they are just taking permission from their competent authority. They are buying some writers and administering some medication. They are seeing the effect of that medication. But in nursing, most of the researchers are STP, PTP, or some quasi-experimental by giving the teaching program, something like that. But I don't think so that is of any use. They want just to publish that paper.
Yes, because that will only be in the books itself. That if you publish, if you do that, I think that cannot be any use to the normal patients, because you are not doing anything different from others. we have an exclusive, so Medanta has an exclusive collaboration with the SGT University for that new, started a new course called Nurse Practitioner in Critical Care. So one main agenda of ours will be that all the nurses participating into that particular course will be doing something different in the thesis. They will not be encouraged to do the historical things, but rather they will be involved into doing something different from the normal thesis. And that is where the role of new administrators, the role of new intelligence, the role of new nurse advocates or comes into picture to come out of the historical approach. It is the institutional boundaries must not set into a particular thing, rather than they should come out of doing something different. I hope that the institute which you are doing will think something different, and you can come out of that historical thing. Thank you.
I have done my studies from different universities. I will not mention the name here. SGT is
That's
also
fine.
doing the same perspective because I am closely associated with SGT University also. And my colleagues, my friends are working here. But I don't think so. The shift we have to do the traditional method to a new clinical research method, that is there also.
Yeah, that is totally depending upon the place where you study the things. It is totally depending upon how you the administrators encourage
Yeah,
clinical research.
yes, that is true, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is why I may add here that it's very important to be aware, right? First thing is awareness that what we can do beyond that realm of just nursing. There is clinical research, then what we can do in there, how we can move in there, right? So
Yes,
there are some steps I think where you need to move out, learn something extra, some additional course, and then you can be in another of your sister concern that is in the same hospital. Maybe you may be doing clinic, maybe a part of the clinical trial, right? And you
yes, yes,
can easily fit in there. Sometimes, or we are not aware of the capabilities we have. You're already a nurse, right? So that kind of dealing with the patients, treating them, having that empathy, knowing how to deal with them, so that is already with you, right? So the clinical research, basically we can talk about clinical trials over here. So
yes,
you have just to make a shift. So that you can do.
yes, ma'am. Surely we will do.
Yeah. So the first thing is being aware. You can go to APAR website also,
Because
look into the
I'll add
courses.
something to.
Yeah. Yes, Joby.
Yeah, I'll add one last statement to Mr. Junaid is that until and unless you possess that peculiar thing from other nurses, the administration will not allow. Your endeavor is to make understand to the administration is that I am doing something different. So that is how you can convince the management. This is some of the tricks that we use to convince the management, which I'm sharing it to you, to convince the management with your extra knowledge. And that is where the role of APAR, the role of all other institutions that has been into the certification courses comes into place. I hope you can do that. Thank you.
Surely we will try my best.
Any other
Thank you so much.
question from other students? Please come forward. So I have some questions. Actually, few of my students had listed them. So Joby, you can give them your example. What skills did you learn that you are the kind of career or the kind of profile you are following now? What skills have you learned, and what did you do? I mean, this is something very commendable.
Yeah, so I'm basically a nurse who have transformed. I tell these lines everywhere because I'm proud to tell these lines, because I am basically a nurse by profession, but a clinical researcher by passion. I started my career as an intensive care nurse initially. Then at that point of time onwards, I was just thinking that about the things which are used continuously. So can I do something different? So that made me to think again and again that why this is happening, or why this methodology, or why this management is happening. I can tell you one of the example. I was looking out for a patient during my rounds in intensive care unit. I noticed that one of the major the problems in ICU is that bed sores or pressure injuries or pressure ulcers. I've been looking that why the pressure ulcer is always again and again it is occurring in the patient when I'm doing every possible strategies. I am changing the positions. I am changing the beds. I am changing all other strategies for the management of bed sores. Then again, this bed sore is coming again and again. Why this is happening? So that why enabled me to do something different. So for that particular bed sores, I Googled it out. I done the review of literature. I've done many review of literature through PubMed, Google Scholar. And finally, I reached to a conclusion that we can do a cross-sectional survey at least of 1 point prevalence survey of 1 day. I have done that 1 day particular point prevalence study on all our ICUs on one particular day. I think if I'm not wrong, I got a sample size of 146. So 146 patients we have individually went and surveyed all the patients with bed sore, and I could find that it is not about that prevent the bed sores. It is something extra is there, because it totally depends upon the nutrition of the patient. It totally depends upon the medications. It totally depends upon the diet which the patient is been taking. So we could understand that there are many other factors that have been involved in bed sores. Not only is that I am changing the positions every 2 hours, that does not mean that my patient should not have a bed sore. So these things enable me to ask. So I love to collaborate it with the international organization. For that particular study, I've been collaborated with the European Pressure Ulcer Advisory Panel, which is a very important international panel working in the field of bed sores. I have been associated with them. We have collaborated it with them. And luckily, that particular paper has been published in Journal of Tissue Viability. So that was one of the first Indian paper that has been done in the field of bed sores, and that in association with the European Pressure Ulcer Advisory Panel. So this is just an example for doing something different. As I told you that every nurse can also be a researcher, provided he or she take out some time, take out some interest, take out some interest in doing something different. Thank you.
Yeah, very well said, Joby. That is, sometimes as nurses, as pharmacy students, we just, limit ourselves. We say, oh, I can only be a pharmacy student. I can only be a nurse. There is nothing beyond it. So what makes the difference is that you move beyond that point, learn something new. That will have an advantage definitely in your career, in your knowledge base. That will make a lot of difference, right?
Yes, sure. Because whatever you learn, it is surely going to enlist in your career ahead. So that is something that you should proud of. You should not stop learning. Every day is a new learning. As I told you that for a nurse, I think every day is a new learning. And a nurse cannot stop himself or herself from learning. But often what happens is that nurse always tells is that I'm too busy in taking care of the patient. I don't have enough time in some of the mere excuses, which we have the interest to do that.
Any other question from the audience? So Joby, what are the changes there in the clinical research industry or in the profession itself that it's important that nurses should also know about clinical research? Because I have heard of many changes going on in the industry where nurses are required to have clinical research knowledge.
Yeah, because there are some of the aspects like that, because nowadays the new amendment of the nursing bill, so they have incorporated the nursing research into the particular curriculum, and some of the bachelors has a subject in research in nursing. But yes, as Junaid told that, so that is limited to the qualitative and quantitative aspect, not coming out of that particular thing. But yes, there should be there should be a trend-setting progress. There should be a change modality, and that is a reason that I think the major stakeholders that who have been involved in research, in clinical research, must come together into one single platform to make this clinical research place in the history of nursing, because I think then only the movement will take place. Otherwise, these guys are going to continue with the historical approach of qualitative and quantitative approach. I'm not telling that is something not doable, but they should come out of that particular aspect.
Yeah, sure. Any other question? I think that was a wonderful session, Joby, and it was quite informative. So I think one thing that is very important is learning more, reading more. As you said, the culture of reading is less. Or we see more, we don't read, we don't explore. That is very important to know about things. And second is motivation. We cannot wait for motivation coming from outside. So we have to pull ourselves to do something new, to learn a skill, to upskill ourselves, right? That's another thing. And of course, nurses don't need to just be nurses. We can be, or they can be, like at a, we say can be why not a director of an organization? There is, so we can have that kind of aspirations as well. There is nothing wrong. It also gives you the motivation to move forward when you think that way. So I think that with this, I am here to thank you again, Joby, for joining us for a wonderful session. And I request all the students who have joined, especially from the nursing background, to look into the clinical research courses which are offered by Apar Health or any other organization. There are a lot of clinical research courses, and that is something edge, because now the world is changing, technology is coming up. So as Joby said, AI, there is research AI based. Similarly, there are clinical trials, we call them decentralized clinical trials, DCTs. What are they basically? Basically, it's like we are going to the patient to do research. So the people who will be required there are nurses who know clinical research. So that is the future. We'll be moving from the hospital to the patient's house for research. So the in between will have people who are experts like nurses who also know clinical research. We will require a lot of professionals in this field. Thank you very much, OP, for joining. Thank you very much.
Once again, I'm thank you to Apar Health, specifically thanks to Dr. Pooja. Thank you, Humaira, for organizing this wonderful webinar at evening. Specifically to all those who have asked the questions, and specifically to all those who have not asked the questions. Thank you to all all of them. Thank you very much.